Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host. You're listening to WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. Coming up next on the Sound of Tomorrow show, we're going to be talking about voting and stuff related to voting. We got some hot picks. We're going to be talking about, there's another topic that I just lost on my piece of paper, and I forgot what it is. And it's science, it's sciencey, it's science related. We're going to talk about that. It's going to be a well-organized show, like always. That's the Sound of Tomorrow, the most best organized show on the radio on WAYO 104.3 FM. That's coming up next, but first, here it comes, something else. First.
I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power, and you're listening to a spooky Halloween mix here on the Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO LP Rochester. Don't forget, the fundraiser for 2023 is starting soon, so get yourself ready to head on over to donate.wayofm.org and throw us some coin. I hear there's a new show you can dedicate your donation to, so don't forget to choose the Zymerm Woe Show from the drop-down. In that last music block, we just heard The Devil Is in My Yard by the Sleepy J. Oh, we have a caller. Hello, caller. You're live for now on the air on WAYO 104.3.
Heather, hey.
Oh, a fan. Yes, I'm here. 'Tis I, the babe with the power herself.
Okay, Heather, don't you recognize my voice? It is Ross.
Sure, boss. Thanks for calling in. Do you have a spooky request for me? Preferably they might be giants or something off the Nuggets Halloween collection, because I brought my own CDs tonight.
Okay, Heather, where are you? It's Ross. It's your co-host Ross. I'm at your house right now. You said we were going to pre-record, so I used the key you gave me.
Didn't quite catch that, boss. I think we have
Not
a bad connection. But were you asking me to play The Haunted House by Gene Simmons? We got you there, boss.
Heather, it's me, it's Ross, and I'm in your house, and you've been telling me there's someone here. I didn't believe you, but now I do. You've got to come home now. There's something and someone and knives. There are many knives.
Tell me, caller, are those sharp, shiny knives by chance?
Okay, well, that sounded like you heard me just fine. And yes, the knives are sharp and shiny, and they're flying around like wild. This is weird.
Quite the imagination, boss. You with your flying chives. I wish you a bountiful garden, friend.
Okay, but help!
Help! Well, seems we've lost our caller. Probably for the best. Nigel does get so hungry this time of year. Well then, back to the Halloween haunts. Space Cadets and boss, if you're still listening, as requested, The Haunted House. And play. Well done. With that man out of the way, we can get on with the important business. I mean, we do need more women in radio, and I thank you, Wendella, for reconnecting me and Hilda here, the original host of The Sound of Tomorrow, whom I once murdered with a sharp, shiny axe. And again, I'm sorry about that, Ms. Woznowski. I would have done the same to you. Oh, I know you would if you could. And I will. What? Ladies, you've kissed and made up. We sure have. The Zymerm Woes Hour is poised to take over the radio. Except I move for renaming. I propose the show be called Mermelstein. The name will remain as I called it. The Sound of Woznowski. Wait. My name is first. I'm the one on WAYO, after all. I'll accept a compromise of the Wendella Mermelstein Radio Hour. No, it shall be hilarity with Hilda Woznowski. Knock it off, you two, and listen to me. I was willing to compromise with the Zymerm Woes show name, but I didn't let you women talk me into having my favorite co-host murdered by sharp, shiny knives and having his remains eaten by my beloved cat Nigel, who, admittedly, is getting up there in years and could use the extra protein, just to be steamrolled into one of you taking over my show. Well, you've got some nerve, Missy. There was a reason I never really liked you. And I have good reason to have never liked you, you having the audacity to murder me and take my show. Now I will have my revenge. Come on. Are either of you even corporeal? Mermelstein, the last time I saw you, you were in the spirit realm where I presume you met good old Hilda here. And Hilda, you've been a lousy old ghost since I murdered you and took your show. What are you going to do? Scare me to death? That ship has sailed. Why, you little... How dare you? Vamoose! Vanquish! Scram! Get out of here! That's right, I'm a witch now. I can just do stuff like vanquish your tookuses. Sheesh, who do they think they are? And oh no, oh shoot. Didn't turn mic one off. Hi, listeners. That was just me and my friends doing a little Halloween goof. Nothing to worry about. Get ready. Donate.wayofm.org. The fundraiser's coming. That was
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe of the power.
Heather.
Ross.
There she is.
I'm here.
There she is.
There he is. I see him.
Yeah, and I think it's time to go.
Yeah, I think it probably is because we run a pretty tight spaceship here on the Sound of Tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. No one would ever accuse us of not being right on the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. But today, I don't know. I can't even see the ball from here. Yeah.
Well, you're in for a treat then, everybody. Heather, what's going on? You know what? Let's jump into. Well, okay. Before we do that, obviously, again, this is going great so far. How was your weekend?
My weekend was great. It was super duper busy.
That's good.
I even did a fun fall activity of going to the farm market and getting pumpkins and apple cider.
Okay. I didn't ask for your whole life story, but that's fine. That sounds good. You really did that? I
did.
Wow.
And gourds. I also got gourds.
Oh, are you one of those people who gets gourds? Like decorative gourds?
Yeah, I never was for the longest time. And then maybe 4 years ago, I think I was at Trader Joe's or something, and I saw the gourds. And I said to myself, it's time. You're the person who puts the gourds in a bowl on your table in your house.
Really?
Yeah.
Just for yourself?
Yeah. Not for anybody else.
Right. Do you ever, let me ask you something. This is very important. Do you ever think about getting those wicker balls and putting them in a basket on your table?
Not yet.
All right.
But I could see it happening. I could definitely see it happening.
All right.
Yeah, I have some of that rainbow corn that I have to hang on my door maybe after we're done recording.
Yeah, I mean, that's like an outside deck. That's like a seasonal decoration. That's all right. I'll give you that. I'll let you have that one.
Outside stuff is a little bit different than a bowl of gourds inside my home.
Right.
Nigel isn't allowed on the table. He's not going to enjoy looking at them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So got some gourds.
I think we should get you more gourds.
No, I've got plenty. Thank you.
I feel like you should become a gourd lady and just go. I think you should have gourds on every table.
Gourds on my nightstand.
Gourds on your nightstand. Yeah, like gourds on the toilet. Just
gourds like in a little basket next to the menstrual supplies.
Right.
That I have in the little basket.
Like take a gourd, leave a gourd bucket, even though nobody's in your house.
Right. But maybe I could set myself up with a little project where I'm the one who takes a gourd and leaves a gourd.
Right.
So, for example, I could walk into the bathroom. I could take a gourd from there. I could go put it on my nightstand, pick up the bedroom gourd, move it down to the dining room.
Yeah.
It would keep me busy. I do like a project.
Yeah, you've got a fun life there.
I do. I have to get out my other seasonal decorations.
Yeah. I feel good.
So you don't have seasonal centerpieces or anything?
I have. I don't know. We have a couple of fall things, and then we have. I mean, this year we're sort of not doing anything because we're doing all this house stuff. We're doing all this renovation sort of stuff.
Right.
So I'm not really getting. But we have we have a few fall things, and then usually I will decorate for Halloween.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that's
and you
for us.
decorate really well for Halloween. I've seen your Halloween decorations.
Well, thank you. Yeah. But this year we're sort of not doing like anything. I don't think I've gotten out a single. Oh, that's not true. There's a there's a foam. There's a little foam ghost about the size of my hand that
Aw.
Mike found like on a tape. I think it got. I think it was a Halloween decoration from last year that got left out for like a year and was just kind of sitting on a table. So he stuck it in the door, in the window in the front door. So that is probably as far as we're going this year. So come on over,
Yeah.
kids. It's going to be a fun party.
I know. I mean, my Halloween decorations, because I do have them, is I changed out the like hand towels and the dish towels for Halloween themed.
Yeah.
And
Oh
then I'll
yeah.
probably just go like straight to Christmas themed.
Yeah. We did. We have some Halloween themed towels that I sort of got out like I sort of got out like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So because I was like, it's close enough. And I've been using those. So yeah, it's a
It's a little half-hearted around here, but it's all right.
yeah. I don't want to be because those people. I mean, and some people just don't care about the holiday, and that's fine. I'm no judgment there. But like there are people that are like, I didn't feel like doing it because then it's too much work. And then I don't know. I feel like if you like that stuff,
Yeah.
you should make an effort to do it. Maybe. And that's not a judgment. I'm not saying like anybody has to do anything they don't want to do. But if you like it,
Yeah.
I feel like it's only I guess I'm speaking for myself. Like I have been sad a couple times when I'm like, oh, I should have done the decorating because it makes it sort of fun and it sort of makes it sort of fun and cheery and breaks up the monotony of just having everything be the same all the time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
if you
And
like, I'm not saying anybody has to decorate if they don't want to, but like
no, but if it
if you
makes you
like it,
happy, it's kind of worth it.
right?
Yeah, because I know if I didn't put up my Christmassy type decorations, not that I really celebrate Christmas per se, but cultural Christmas, etc. I think if I didn't put my little decorations out and my lights and everything, I think I'd feel awfully sad.
Right, and your gourds.
My gourds will be gone by Christmas.
You're not gonna get any Christmas gourds.
Do they? Maybe what I should do is shellac them and dip them in glitter,
I think
and
so.
then
And
they'd be
then
Christmas gourds.
yeah, seriously, and then you won't have to. I feel like that's the I don't know how environmentally friendly shellac is, but I feel like it's you could get some.
Yeah, it's very
I
environmentally friendly. If you get real shellac, it's completely natural, as
really
they
is
taught us in shop class. Yeah, it's lac bug poop
huh?
or excretion, but
I didn't know that.
I did because in shop class in middle school, the teacher was rolling up little balls of shellac and throwing them at us and yelling, "It's lac bug dew."
Oh,
It was very
yeah, you're right.
funny.
I yeah, I had to look that up to find out if you were telling the truth, and you are.
I'm telling the
So
truth, yeah. Because I think I had to fact check it some years ago because I've always remembered that it was just a funny thing and I thought it was funny when it was happening in class. But I did once fact check it and I was like, yes, not exactly poop, but excretion.
I feel like I also feel like all shop teachers or whatever they're called now are the same because that seems like I had the only shop teacher or whatever they called it. Um, I don't think even then they called it shop class, but whatever it was called, I feel like throwing that at people and going, it's poop is something he would have done. So
It very, very much. See, what would it be called? Like, I guess we had like the woodworking portion and we had a ceramics portion.
I don't know. There's a name for it that's different, but I can't
That's
remember what
not
it's called.
shop.
I think it wasn't even called shop when I did it. It had a different name, but
Hmm.
I don't know what
I
they
wonder because I feel like it was called shop, and we would rotate that with home ec.
right. But you realize I didn't go to school with you.
It
So
seems like
like
you did.
so um so I mean it could have been different.
It could have. I just wonder what the name is.
Yeah, and I can't find anything. Maybe it's just shop class.
I don't know. I hope it's not something because I've learned that calling phys ed gym class, as we did, that is offensive to some phys ed teachers
Why?
because the gym is the room and phys ed is the subject that's being taught.
All right. Well, okay. I'm Mr. Sensitive, but I don't
I
know.
am too. I know.
I'm not gonna
It's
get.
all right. I can
I'm
change
not.
my language on that. But so
I'm
I
not
hope
gonna
that
get
shop isn't
too.
offensive to
Yeah,
all the teachers who are throwing balled up shellac at
right.
students
I mean,
and saying it's poop.
from our mutual experience, it's they're all monsters, so it's not really anything I'm gonna worry about too much.
I
But
like my shop teachers.
well, good. Well, good
They're
because
nice.
you like when people throw poop at you.
It was funny. But yeah, so my environmentally conscious shellac, and I'll get the bio glitter
Okay,
so that that's all safe and everything.
it sounds good, and then you don't have to. Then you don't have to. You don't have to get new gourds.
But I will for fall because I don't want glitter gourds for fall.
Oh, okay. So there's no advantage to this whatsoever.
No, not at all. You just want me to have these gourds around all the time.
Okay.
I was trying to placate you.
I was trying to save you buying new gourds, but
I don't mind at all.
you don't have to put glitter on. I don't know. Anyway, Heather, speaking of poop, I'm going to try to segue here. This was a piece. You can find this all over the internet. So this was a piece that I found on BBC News, but this was all over the internet. This was just interesting, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but did you know in the I don't know how to set this up. In the so there's the Black Death where everybody died,
Yes.
right? So many people
Oh
died.
yeah.
A ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
Ton of people.
Whole ton. Yeah, lots.
And there were a few. I think the Black Death refers to like the 1300s ones, but there were a few major outbreaks of bubonic and pneumonic and septicemic plague throughout the medieval period and beyond, and sort of did a number on at least certainly Western Europe and other areas as well, but particularly Western Europe. In some, I think in some localities. I'm wrong about that. Actually, I'm wrong about that. So at least in the Black Death of the 14th century it was not just Western Europe. It was we talk about Western Europe, but it was much of Europe. It was Middle East. It was Northern Africa. People forget when we talk about medieval times
Mm-hmm.
that they have vegetarian options, and you should plan ahead and
Have
get
you ever
yourself a
been
table.
to medieval times?
No, I want to go so bad. I
Let's
love
go. Where is it? Where can we go to
schmaltzy.
one?
I don't know. It's in like I think the nearest one is in like Saskatoon or something. It's not. There's not one nearby, but which is probably why I haven't gone. But there's one in Canada. The nearest one is in Canada somewhere.
We could go to Canada. I have a
All right.
passport. That vegetarian options?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Why would I go otherwise?
For the
What am I
show.
gonna eat? I'm gonna sit there and
Eat a turkey
sit there and
leg?
stare at a turkey leg.
I know, we can't eat those turkey legs.
Um. No, but so the world's been interconnected for a long time, which is not the purpose of my spiel here. What I'm talking about. But particularly talking about the Black Death of the 14th century in various areas, depending on where we're talking about. I think Western Europe a little more so, but the population loss of people who died from the Black Death ranges between 30 and 50%, depending on
Ew.
exactly where you were. I mean, like half the people, which is why, again, this is a tangent, but when people talk about people were using like throughout COVID, people have sort of used a few times the Black Death or the bubonic plague or these plagues and like, oh, well, we'll just do like they did and wait till, we reach herd immunity. And it's like, well, herd immunity in those cases was half the population is dead.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So that's not necessarily, I mean, that's not necessarily the way you want to go.
No.
Maybe it is because you're a monster and you obviously don't care
Wow.
about people, but it's going to hit home. It's if 50% of people, if one out of every two people is dropping dead, it's probably going to hit you
Yeah.
at some point. If it doesn't hit you directly, it's going to hit someone in your family. Anyway, so let me get a little back on topic here. So, new study from the University of Chicago, a combination of University of Chicago, McMaster University in Ontario, and the Pasteur Institute in Paris. They examined ancient DNA samples from bones of several hundred people from London and Denmark. So this is why I said Western Europe at the beginning, during and after the Black Death. And what they found is, so this is interesting. There is a there are a set of they found 4 genetic markers that people had that gave them extra resistance to the Black Death again
Mm-hmm.
of this area in the 14th century, which is because the population because so many people died. It was sort of a sped up evolution in the sense that those those genes were selected to survive, right? Like if you had these genes that made so much of the population is dying around you that if you survive, there's a good chance you have these genetic markers. Where before the Black Death, they might have been, blended into the population. After the Black Death, they're more concentrated because
Right. Right. Those are the people left.
those are mostly, they gave you a higher chance of surviving. So, but what they found is those genes are also related to Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, or lupus.
Wow.
So the new study basically suggests that I just thought it was interesting. So this sort of mini, well, I mean, I don't know, mini evolution. That's just something I made up. I mean, evolution's a constant process that's always happening, but you get sort of a sped up process because you have such an extreme scenario. So just that link to both a historical event and a sort of major trauma in relatively recent human history in the grand scheme of things, having and the impact it has on us today. Like basically the Black Death has sort of made it more likely that you or me or any one of us
Mm-hmm.
will have Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, or lupus.
Wow. Wow,
So
that's interesting because I did see a headline about that. And I wondered because it was like, these things saved people from the plague, but at what cost?
yeah, well, and
And so
it's a
now
good
I know.
yeah, and it's an interesting thing about the trade-offs of genetics too. There's always sort of our bodies are always sort of looking for the most, the most benefit, but a lot of times you're sort of taking something from over here to get, and again, it's hard not to talk about it and make it sound like someone's sitting there pushing buttons and planning all this out. I mean, it's sort of a process that's happening because that's where, nature is sort of pushing us. But, the idea that in, as we evolve, like nature will tend to favor taking something from over here that's a little less useful and putting it over here where it's a
Mm-hmm.
little more useful. But then there's usually a push and pull, So in the 14th century, obviously we were being selected for being able to survive this horrible mass plague that is, attacking humankind. Less, but in the process, we wind up with conditions that are less deadly, but certainly no fun either,
Right.
or more likely to have those conditions. So it's interesting. And the question, raised in the article is not, there's no way to say, of course, at the present, and there won't be able to, this is something we won't know for a long, long time, but is COVID going to have some kind of similar effect? Um,
Right.
the death rate with COVID is it's terrible. It's monstrous in the scope of 6 billion people on the planet. It's less certainly than these plagues of the middle, the medieval era and the early modern period. But hmm, and it affects older people who've probably already had children. So there's a little less likelihood that there would be something like this. But who's to say? You don't know.
Right.
I certainly don't know.
No, nor do I. I have read things that already there are studies being done on the impact COVID's had on, people's mental health,
Sure.
because that's certainly going to be a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we are going to continue to deal with. And I think, I don't know, and children too, who've sort of come up under these circumstances of people having formative socializing years where they've had to do things online and things like that. I think
Right.
who know. I mean, kids are, you know, I I think some of the drama over that is a little overplayed because I think kids are much more adaptable for the most part than we give them credit for. But I also think, there are things there that we're probably going to, in the years to come, we'll see some impacts there, and we'll have to, well, I say we'll have to make some adjustments. We'll probably just ignore it and hope it goes away and
I
not
would
get
think
anyone,
so.
not give
And I'm
anyone
not
the
sure.
support they need. But
I'm not sure how much you and I would have to interact with that anyway.
right, absolutely,
But
So
yeah, as a society, I'm sure that we'll just ignore that.
yep, no skin off my nose,
No.
But so that was the little bit of science news. I thought
Wow.
it was
Yeah,
ever
that's
so interesting.
interesting.
You know what else, Heather?
What?
I want to talk a little bit about voting. Can we do that?
We love to talk about voting.
We do. I wanted to pull up, and I don't want to get too, well, I think people know where we stand on a lot of issues. And if they don't know where we stand on a lot of issues, they can probably guess where we stand on a lot of issues
Yeah.
because we're not that, we're fairly transparent.
And
So,
we're pretty consistent too.
and pretty consistent. I think, I don't like to get too specifically partisan, in the sense that we can, I think I can be supportive of a particular party, but I think we're both people who recognize that, like, nothing is perfect. There's a lot of work for all of us to do, and the there are pronounced differences between particular politicians, between political parties, that don't mean that either is perfect,
Right.
and that
Oh,
either
yes.
doesn't
No, they're
have
all far from perfect.
pushing and things we need to do. But I wanted to bring up some of the stuff because there is just because I see so much stuff online about people's frustration with all of that, which I get, and I've said this before, and I don't even know if we need to preface this again. I get it. I get why you're frustrated. I get why you don't love it. But we're seeing stuff. I was seeing a lot of stuff this week. So in Mesa, Arizona, this is just one example. In Mesa, Arizona, in particular, there was a vote. So there are ballot drop boxes where, like, armed armed thugs in masks with their faces disguised and their license plates concealed. I guess so. This is the one scenario in which these people, I'm sure, will wear a mask. Are standing armed in front of the ballot box, basically intimidating voters who come along. Of course, as you can imagine, this is not in the white suburbs of Mesa, Arizona. In Florida, the governor just very publicly and held a press conference, had, I think, a couple dozen people arrested. So these were, there was a,
Yeah.
Florida had a ballot initiative to amend their constitution because they had a very restrictive process for getting back your voting rights after you get out of jail, basically, if you've been convicted of a
Okay.
felony. And the people of Florida voted overwhelmingly for a constitutional amendment that would give people their voting rights back more quickly, more efficiently, automatically. Like right now, or before this, the process was you basically had to, like, appeal to the governor personally, which,
Okay.
as you can imagine, goes very quickly and is in
Right.
no way ripe for favoritism or anything like that.
No, not at all.
And, efficient, because obviously this is so. But the Florida legislature decided that they were pretty much going to ignore the vote of the people of the state of Florida. So there was a lot of confusion during the last electoral period, right? So a lot of people didn't know because there was a time period at which this ballot initiative had passed. This constitutional amendment was in place, people thought, and then it went through the courts, and then the legislature was fighting it and trying to get it removed of. So there was a period where, like, people were really unclear. Even, like, lawyers were unclear about who could vote and who couldn't legally.
Wow.
So all these 20 people that the governor just had arrested publicly on TV held a press conference to tout it. These were all people of color, and all people who had felony convictions. And every single one of them was someone who had gone to the local or state election board and said, "Hey, I don't know if I can vote. Can I vote?" And they were told, and this is on record, there's no question about this, they were told, "Yes, you can vote."
Okay.
So they voted. So the governor had the police, not like a hey, turn yourself in, not a we're giving you a ticket, but we are coming to your house or your place of work. We are pulling you out. We are dragging you out of your place of work and your home, and we're throwing you into a police car. And even the police, I mean, if you can imagine the Florida police being, um, you know, what that type of person might be. Even the
Yeah.
police, because some of the body cam footage was released, and the police were like, "We don't know why we're arresting you. We just have to. They just told us to do this." So
Wow.
already some of those have gone through the court system and have been thrown out. Um, but again, the purpose is, like any terrorism, the purpose is
Yeah.
intimidation. I don't think the
Right.
governor ever thought he'd win in court, but he gets to intimidate people and make people question. You want to make particularly people of color, particularly black
Right.
people especially, you want to make them think twice before they go vote, right?
Right. Yeah. And
And
if you were one of those people going, I really want to vote, I wonder if I can vote, that would make you way more likely to go, I'm not going to risk it. I
right,
probably can't.
right, because someone tells you it's fine, it's confusing, but we think you can vote. Yeah, go vote, and then you wind up in jail
Yeah.
like 2 years later. I mean, it's not unreasonable that people would go, maybe it's not worth the trouble. And
Right.
you get enough people doing that, particularly in states like Florida where we have this, where you have um where you have these laws about felony voting restrictions. We know, we can go through all the data about uh particularly black Americans, disproportionately arrested for the same crimes, disproportionately thrown in jail, disproportionately convicted on higher things and given harsher sentences and longer
Hmm.
sentences. So it's a very convenient, if you're a particular type of politician, it's a very convenient thing because we can throw all the black people in jail, and then hey, also they can't vote anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about their opinion. I don't
Wow.
have to worry what they think about it. And they're never going to be able to stop us from doing this because they'll never be able to vote. So I say all that to say there's a lot on the line with this upcoming election. And it's, I could talk about the LGBTQ issues because I'll tell you a lot of queer people I know and myself are scared. There's this real, and this isn't even the biggest issue. I mean, but this is just the most personal to me. Like the there are, the Republican Party is talking about all sorts of a lot of these state laws that we've seen, of which dozens have passed about, um, you know, barring 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 discussion of the don't say gay bills to
Yes. Yes.
the short version. Um, there's talk of, with a Republican takeover of Congress and or the Senate, there's talk of, there's plan for, it's already been pushed forward, a national version of that. So what's currently being pushed is a far-reaching new law that would, this is from the Washington Post, that would prohibit public schools from offering young students lessons or literature that discuss gender identity, sexual orientation, and transgender individuals. Um, it would outlaw the use of federal funding, which isn't just funding. It's, when you say federal funding, when you're talking about public schools, you're talking about anything that happens in a public school,
Hmm.
for any event that exposes children under the age of 10 to nude adults, individuals who are stripping, or lewd or lascivious dancing. Um, which, so, and it says federal facilities cannot be used to host or promote any sexually oriented program. They define sexually oriented programming as any depiction, description, or simulation of sexual activity, any lewd or lascivious depiction or description of human genitals, or any topic involving gender identity, gender dysphoria, transgenderism, sexual orientation, or related subjects. So there are 64 state laws that have been passed. There are another 200 on the way. The plan is for a national version of that law that would be across the board, across the United States.
Well, and that law is putting a lot of things in the same bucket that don't go in the same bucket. Like, I, it seems very dangerous to me to not allow children to learn about human bodies and their own bodies.
Right.
And if you're not allowed to discuss anything involving genitalia, again, like this has nothing to do with the orientation of a kid, nothing to do with the gender identity of the kid. You want the kid to know how to talk about their body in
Yeah, this
case, and I hate to say it, but if something happens, but you want the kid to be able to say like that they were touched inappropriately where on their body. And if we don't acknowledge that genitalia exists, like that seems like it's setting up something that's like a way creepy level.
well, and yes. And we've seen, we've certainly seen, and I won't give examples here, but we've certainly seen Republican politicians and politicians. We've seen politicians,
Yes.
we've seen religious leaders. We've seen this plenty of times where the same people pushing this type of thing, suddenly there's an arrest. The police are at the door
Right.
because, you know, A, B, or C. We don't need to go into the details, but everybody can picture what I'm talking about. Everybody's seen news stories about what I'm talking about, where the very prim and proper conservative politician, religious leader, etc., is
Yeah.
discovered with child pornography. Is discovered with, and again,
Right.
that's not limited to any particular group. However, it's where you see the hypocrisy more strongly. But yeah, this is trying to kill two birds with one stone. One of them is to get rid of any sex education, what we would call
Right.
sex education in our schools, period. Because until the age of 10, you know, like I had like my puberty was early. If you're and so if
Oh,
you're
and kids are getting earlier and earlier with that.
absolutely, and particularly I think for um particularly I think for people who menstruate, that's a whole other extra thing where not knowing what's going on there.
Right. And that doesn't have anything to do with sex,
Right.
but that does have to do with body parts, that has to do with reproductive parts, that has to do with genitalia. And if kids aren't allowed to learn about their bodies, like, how are they going to understand anything? I completely agree. We should not have lewd and lascivious acts being
Well,
presented to 8-year-olds. But
well,
I
but
feel like that's the argument about taking your kid to like drag story hour at the library.
no, that's
I
the argument for anything gay. That's the argument for anything queer. That is the new Republican Party argument, is that anything queer is lewd and lascivious. So
Is
that's
that
the other part
it?
of that, to link those two together. So when you
So
say
that's the
we're not
dog
going to discuss
whistle.
anything lewd or lascivious, we're not going to talk about nudity, we're not going to talk about perversion, we're not going to talk about sodomy, all of these words that they'll use. It's not because they think that new dancers are coming into third grade classrooms. It's
Okay.
not because they think second graders are going to art class and doing like nude figure studies.
Okay.
It's
So in
because they
their,
think there are gay people that are either working in schools that shouldn't be,
okay.
or are talking about their spouses, or are kids that are gay.
Okay. So it's lewd and lascivious when there's a book in the school that's like, Karen has two mommies.
Correct. 100%. And
Okay.
they
Okay.
define that. I mean,
Thank you very much for, you
it's
know
not
me
even a dog whistle.
sometimes.
It's defined. They define it. I mean, they explain exactly, like, one paragraph down, they explain exactly what they're talking about. So it's not even a
Okay.
dog whistle. It's exactly what they're talking about. They make
But
it very clear.
it's redefining the meaning of lewd and lascivious.
Well, for us, not for them.
I
you know?
Okay, thank you for explaining that to me, because you know how sometimes I like to look at what words actually mean and then I become confused. I was not as aware as I should have been that there was a new meaning to lewd and lascivious.
Yeah. So that's just one angle, and that's, again, I have seen over the past, even more so than in the specific Trump era, which I guess hasn't really ended. Um,
Mm-mm.
I have heard more assaults, threats, against queer people that I know than ever in my life. Um, it is constant. And this is something that's going to make it even worse. You're going to have queer kids that grow up having no idea what's going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
as I didn't, and it sucked. But they're also going to be, at least I grew up in an era where things were starting to change in the sense of like it wasn't talked about, but at least it was there were some glimmers of like maybe you're not a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is passing. This is talking about federal laws that say if you're laws that say if you're queer, you're a pervert, and they're the same thing. It's lewd and lascivious. Um, that's just one part of it. So there are also plans for a nationwide uh 15-week, pretty much no exceptions abortion ban.
Yeah.
Um, that's on top of the various state laws, which are harder to, you know, in individual. In New York, we don't have those restrictions, which is good. So as New Yorkers voting, there's well, there is a close governor's race between someone who supports full abortion restrictions and
Yeah.
someone who doesn't. So in New York, I don't know that the votes are in the legislature. I don't know that we would see that even under extreme circumstances at the moment, but it's something to keep in mind. But on a national level, this is something we could definitely see. And then suddenly on top of the various state restrictions, so even in a state like New York, where the majority of, the overwhelming majority of New Yorkers do not want to see abortion bans, we've got abortion bans.
Yeah.
That is very possible. And these, control of the federal government agencies are neck and neck. And with the Supreme Court as tilted as far as it is, that's it's a I feel like I feel like things are as dangerous now as they've ever been. Just because there are ways that things are bad and they can get so much worse. And then there are more sort of there are plans afoot for cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security.
Yes.
There are plans for, and this is not something I'm making up. This is strategy that Republican leaders have spoken about. The using the debt ceiling as a pivot to force movement on other things they want to do, like the abortion ban, like cutting Social Security. The last time that was threatened, the Dow lost 2,000 points almost immediately, and it took like $20 billion out of the economy.
Yeah.
Just because it's basically saying we as a nation will not pay our bills, which affects our credit rating, which means interest rates go up, which means houses get more expensive, cars get more expensive. Everything takes a hit. Shipping, everything, prices go up. It basically hits inflation as hard as anything. So that was the last time that happened. That was the threat of that. That knocked $20 billion out of the economy just like that, like just gone. Because suddenly our credit rating takes it. So again, these are some of the things, and some of them hit home more. Also, that is a big one.
Yeah.
Cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare. Those are big things. They don't seem as immediate, maybe, but they certainly are if you make use of those things. And again, these aren't things I'm like speculating on, or these aren't things I'm like fear mongering on. These are things where there are proposals, there are plans from leaders in the party. This is what we're going to do, or we've already gotten things in gear.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's also stuff they're talking about wanting to repeal the Affordable Care Act entirely. Other people, depending on who the leadership is, I said a 15-week abortion ban. There are people that are talking about a complete abortion ban, depending on who winds up in the leadership. Immigration, climate change. We're seeing, I don't know how this ties in. We're seeing with former President Trump, with Kanye West famously recently, with sort of these growing waves of anti-Semitism as well, like this blatant, like, screeching anti-Semitism is never not an undercurrent, but just this very vocal, like, we are perfectly content to say out loud what we feel about Jewish people, and it's not good. So I don't know how that ties into plans about I don't know how that plays into governing, but a lot of the leader, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boebert, they're all on the same page with this stuff. So I don't know how that ties into governing, but it's not something I necessarily want to see. So all of this is to say, I don't know, just go vote, people, really, because a lot of people can't. A lot of people can't, or their votes aren't going to be counted. Um, there's, again, like we talked with in Florida, we've talked about with these sort of armed militias who are trying to scare people away from dropping off their ballots in
Yeah,
particular
and
areas.
why it it's probably silly for me to ask why these masked people who are trying to suppress people's votes aren't being arrested.
Because they are in locations where they are supported by the government.
Okay. Okay,
Where,
so a blind eye is being turned. It's technically illegal, but anybody who calls the cops on them, oh well.
right.
Okay,
That
okay,
that seems to be very much the case because
okay.
yeah, you think it would be illegal, but
Well, it is. I mean,
you
voter
know,
suppression is
you know,
illegal.
it was also illegal to storm the Capitol and try to hang the vice president. But
Yeah.
we have an awful lot of politicians who, this is the other level here with all of this. And the thing that scares me sort of more than any individual issue is that there is this rising tide of we will take elections by any means necessary. We will take them by force. And again, we've seen that for the last 2 years now. We know that this is in the wind. We know, and again,
Yeah.
this is not me fear mongering. This is people on TV saying we will not accept election results.
Yes.
We will gerrymander. We will scare people away from the polls. We will do anything it takes to win, and that is fine because might makes right. And any way our I guess maybe the most charitable way I could think about it is our cause is noble, therefore in someone's own mind, my cause is just, so if I have to, whatever I have to do to win. So there's also this collapse of democracy as a thing that people value,
Yeah.
which
And
scares me almost more than any other individual issue, because it's going to get harder and harder to, if not impossible, to ever get that back if we go much further down that road.
yeah, it's frightening and it's chilling, and again, like you said, I try to take a charitable view and think like, well, where are they coming from? What what noble purpose does this serve? Because I don't want to think like they're just that full of hatred. But I think that is what it comes down to, right? I mean,
Oh
none of
no,
the abortion bans are about protecting the unborn or protecting women. They're about control and hatred.
yeah.
The banning anything gay from schools, that's just about hatred. That's not about protecting the children, because we all know children are better protected when they're given information and education and allowed to express themselves. So
Yeah.
that's actively like all of these things. It's like, oh, we're helping women. Oh, we're helping gay kids. No, no, it's actively damaging.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, I'm as concerned now as I've ever been in my life. And obviously we've had reasons to be concerned prior to this, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that a lot of sort of the Trump era stuff that seemed bad, but also seemed very specific to a time and place and a person, has filtered into the broader culture. So,
Yes.
the anti-gay hatred, the anti-Semitism, the anti-women, the anti-trans, whatever, all of this stuff, and the anti-democracy. Like, we
Yeah.
don't care who votes. We don't care about votes. We just want to win. That's all filtered into the broader culture. And now there are a lot of people who've taken that on. And I don't think there's anything you can do with people like that, but fight them. And I mean, you know, fight them fight them with whatever tools, whatever political tools. I'm not advocating violence, but whatever tools are available, and fight on behalf of people who can't fight, because, you know, if if people are trying to go vote and there are people with guns standing there and they decide to stay home, I don't completely not understand, I
I'd be
get it.
scared.
Right, absolutely. So, fight on behalf of people that can't fight for themselves or don't have the means to fight for themselves.
Yeah, it is. It is frightening. I have to say, when Trump was elected, I did not at all think that that was going to be a temporary shift
Yeah.
in like that in the mood of the nation. I most definitely saw everything up to the election and then saw what was happening when he was president. I didn't think like the second he wasn't president, all of those people who think it's right to, for example, storm the Capitol
Mm-hmm.
and break into it and somehow call that patriotism.
I I didn't see it all becoming quite as normalized as it has. Um, I didn't see it all becoming quite as. It seemed like a very rowdy, like 33% of the country, which is not good. I mean, don't get me. I mean, that's a lot. It's bad. It was bad. Like you say, I was fully aware it was bad. I did not see it becoming quite so. A lot of this stuff has sort of sunk into this either or thing that we get to, like, or, you know, eh, the storming of the Capitol seemed like a moment where, for a split second, it seemed like a moment where people were kind of like, "Whoa, this has gotten a little out of hand," and now it's sort of sunk back into this, like, well, some people say that storming the Capitol and burning it down and killing the vice president and killing the Speaker of the House. Some
Yeah.
people say that that's bad, and some people say maybe it's okay. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we are with that. So I and the same thing with the anti-Semitism, and the same thing with the anti-queer stuff. The and a lot of the even people were really riled up, justifiably so, with the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe versus Wade. And now all I'm hearing about is people like, well, I don't know, gas is up 10 cents a gallon, so I don't think I want to vote for a Democrat because the Democrats because President Biden. I didn't even understand the connection with that when people talk about that. Like, Joe Biden didn't set the gas prices, but
Yeah.
so, and I don't know why you think Republicans aren't coming out with a plan to lower gas prices, even if that were your number one issue. So I don't know what the connection there is, but so things were so loud for a while, but it's almost worse now that they've gotten quieter because everything's become normalized and accepted and just part of the background.
Yeah, and I know it gets frustrating for me, because I have Trump supporters in my life. Obviously, I've spoken of them on the show before. Few, thank goodness, but nevertheless. And it's hard to talk to them because I on I still believe they're intelligent people, but they come out with this stuff and it's just wild.
Yeah.
And they believe it. And when you say something like, there are not drag queens stripping in front of third graders, it's not happening in the third grade classroom, they'll be like, oh, but it is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, tell me where. It just is. It's
Give
common.
me a single example. Yeah.
And then they get on this weird train of like, and it damages the children. It's like, but it's not happening. And I think that's where I get so frustrated because there is so much of the statement of things that aren't happening as facts.
And no, I mean, and this is something we've seen for a long time, but more than ever, I think there's just more than ever. There's this. Oh, but yeah, it is. And you go,
Right.
no,
And
but it's not. Can you show me? Like, can you show me an example? Can you show me a picture? Can you show me anything that backs up this sort of ridiculous thing that you're saying? I mean,
there's no critical thinking, there's no fact checking. And it seems like that, maybe because we do this show, but I can't even remember. I saw some news piece that interested me, but it was from a newspaper that I'd never heard of.
mm-hmm.
I saw the headline, I wanted to read it, and I liked what it said because, confirmation bias. So
Sure.
I was like, ooh, good, this is good news. But then just to keep myself, somewhat grounded in reality, I Googled around, found a bunch of other sources, found NPR, found Reuters, stuff like that, said the same thing as that paper. So I was like, good, okay, I got more sources.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's a good thing to do, and it was quite easy.
Yeah. Well, I saw a video because there's all this stuff, and we'll wrap up. But there was a video where someone was interviewing, and I don't know. I try not to take individual cases, but just because you can get anybody, there's somebody who will say something if you want them to say something, if
Yes.
you're interviewing them or whatever. So I try not to take individual cases, but this was like conversations I've had with people in my family where they were talking about the fentanyl and the drugs because immigrants are coming from Mexico and they want to get the kids hooked on fentanyl in America because they want to destroy our country and get rid of Jesus. And it was a whole thing. And the interviewer was sort of like, so they're crossing the border, endangering themselves with expensive drugs and like buying houses in nice neighborhoods and then waiting and hoping someone knocks on the door to trick or treat because they can do, and it was sort of like where's the, and again, I've had conversations very similar, if not almost identical with people in my family where it was sort of like, why would you do that? Like,
Yeah.
how do you, like, you're saying these poor Mexican immigrants that are like poor and shiftless, who you would, I mean, again, that's not my words, but they're going to like they're going to like save up these expensive drugs that they could just sell and make a lot of money if they wanted to do that. And they're going to like buy a house in the suburbs just to wait for kids to come knock on the door for trick or treat and then give them fentanyl because somewhere the kids might get hooked on fentanyl and then it'll get rid of Jesus. Like, I mean, it's so like once you don't have to think about it very long to be like, this does not really make sense.
Right. Like, to what end? How would that benefit these folks who are sitting in their houses with lots of expensive drugs waiting for the children? Like,
right. Like,
what do
you
they
just
get out of this?
Like, even if you were going to do all that, wouldn't you just sell the drugs?
Like, yeah.
And the people in the area were like, well, I don't know. That's what it is. We saw it on TV.
Like, what?
It's like, that doesn't, not only can you not prove that happened, it's happening because you can't find an example, but it doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
It makes 0 sense. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. And I don't know. To what end? Like,
America.
Yeah. Something else.
I don't know. Do so. My advice is please do something. I don't know. Everybody just be aware of what's going on out there. And if, with your conscience, if there's some action you think you can take, please take it because things are getting rough out there. And again, the people that are pushing a lot of this nonsense, they will probably show up to vote and their votes will be counted.
Yes, as they should be.
Right. So, and again, there are people whose votes will not be counted, and we know that. So we're fighting for those people too. I'm a white guy in the suburbs, so my vote's safe. It's fine. So I'm going to use it however I can.
Well, I'm in the city. We'll see what happens with my polling station this year.
There you go. Well, thanks, everybody. This has been the Sound of Tomorrow show on WAYO 104.3 FM. We will be back next week with more nonsense. Stuff and nonsense. Mostly stuff.
Rats. I guess I should have thought that over a little more. I still agree we do need more women's voices on the air. But Ross wasn't only my co-host. He was my friend, too. Possibly my husband. Never been able to figure that one out.
Heather.
Ross! It's you! But how?
Okay, yeah, so I don't know exactly what happened here, but for someone who claims to love sharp, shiny knives, all yours are super dull. It was pretty scary how they were flying around and all, but they just kind of like bounced off and clattered to the floor. It was really like nothing.
Oh, so you're all right then?
Yeah, I'm better than all right. Like I didn't know Nigel has gotten so friendly in his old age. He let me pet his ears, and I got him some of his wet food out of the fridge, and I found a couple of your kombuchas in there too. And wow, you splurged on the good stuff, so that was pretty.
My kombucha? That's like $4 a bottle.
And so refreshing. Thank you so much. So, are you coming home soon, and we can record?
Wendella? Hilda? Turns out you were right. Come on, don't be mad that I vanquished you.
Oh, and I ran your knives through the dishwasher too, since they were all like on the floor and everything.
You put my knives in the dishwasher? Ah!
Space Cadets, as you can tell, we here at the Sound of Tomorrow take great care and effort creating the most sensical and amusing skits we can muster.
And this content you heard is really the most sensical and amusing we can muster.
So for more quality programming like this,
and lots that's way, 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 way better,
donate soon
right now.
or now.
Donate
depending
all
on
the
when
time.
you're listening.
We should do donate soon. Let's do it.
All right.
Donate soon. Donate.wayofm.org.